What is going on, everybody? Been a diehard Pistons fan since 2003 and starting to get cautiously optimistic about this Pistons team. The Detroit Pistons just pulled out what I would consider to be the ugliest win of the season. They go ahead and beat the Charlotte Hornets by a score of 98-94. In this video, we are going to go through, highlight 3 individual player performances, and then just kind of talk about the game in general and where we are with everything, because man, this was an absolutely wild game. So first player right off the bat that we do need to highlight should be obvious. Absolutely, hands down, no question, player of the game tonight was Tobias Harris. He finishes the game with 24 points to go along with 10 rebounds and 3 steals. He was 9 of 16 from the floor, 4 of 5 from the three-point line. An absolutely great game from Tobias Harris. Probably his best game, if not his best game, his most important game since he returned to the Pistons this offseason. I'm not sure if he statistically has had a better game this season, but what I do know is tonight he was our offensive leader and our engine for big parts of this game. He played the most minutes on the team by a long shot at 36. He got us a lot of buckets when we crucially needed them in big time situations down the stretch and when we are trying to get back into the game. And I really can't praise Tobias Harris enough for this performance, because I really had a hard time choosing other players to highlight from tonight, because it really felt like Tobias Harris was the only player who played as good as I think they're capable of playing tonight. Tobias was just hands down incredible, and just makes me disappointed that some fans in this fan base don't appreciate him, because the way that he was able to stabilize this team in a game like tonight where the refs were not going our way and a lot of shots weren't falling, it's just really impressive. Just big shout outs to Tobias. I think he had a great game. So moving on, the second player that we do want to highlight you might not expect, and it's Marcus Sasser. The reason why you might not expect it is because if you just look at the box score, you see that he only had 3 points to go along with 3 boards and 5 assists in 22 minutes. 1 of 5 shooting. Very pedestrian box score for Marcus Sasser, but I'm highlighting him here for 2 reasons. First reason being, there's nobody else on this team who really exceeded my expectations for them tonight. But also, I think that him playing on the ball defensively was very important in the second half of this game. The Charlotte Hornets scored 29 points in the entire second half of tonight. They had 17 points in the third quarter and 12 points in the fourth quarter. And throughout that kind of stretch of time where the Hornets were really struggling to score, a lot of that was happening, in my opinion, because Marcus Sasser was making it really hard for the Hornets to get into their sets. He was applying ball pressure all the way up at our own free throw line and then really kind of hammering it home to the half court line. As soon as the Hornets had the ball across half court, Marcus Sasser was up in their grill. Yes, he did have 4 fouls from doing that and no steals to show for it on the box score. But if you were watching this game, the Hornets were wasting a lot of time trying to get into their sets and just kind of getting discombobulated in general. And I think a lot of it had to do with the ball pressure from Marcus Sasser. So in a game like tonight where everything was off, and we're going to get more into that later, I think that it's fair to applaud Marcus Sasser for something that might have gone unnoticed, and that was really good ball pressure and helping contain the Hornets and holding them to hardly any points in the second half. So the third player, or players rather, that we're going to highlight is going to be the trio of big men. It's going to be Jalen Duren, Isaiah Stewart, and Paul Reed, who was unpictured here. Paul Reed only had 5 minutes, but in those 5 minutes, he had 2 steals, and he was able to just blow up another pick and roll, something I highlighted in my Paul Reed video. Another thing we talked about in my Paul Reed video is trying to find a way to get Paul Reed, I said 8 minutes a night at least. Tonight he got 5 despite Isaiah Stewart and Jalen Duren both playing. So like to see that out of Paul Reed. But I think Jalen Duren had a fine game, finishing with 10 points and 14 rebounds. a couple turnovers that I wasn't the biggest fan of, a couple defensive lapses, mostly in the first half, but all in all, a relatively good game for Jalen Duren, and he also had a couple big-time blocks down the stretch. And same thing with Isaiah Stewart. Nothing that's going to jump off the stat sheet with 5 points and 7 boards, but he had 2 blocks, and one of them was a huge block that led to what should have been 2 points, but there was a whole situation with the officials. So that's pretty much it for the highlighting of the players tonight. Just a crazy game. I mean, if you look at the counting score and see that the Hornets had 17 points in the third quarter and 12 points in the fourth quarter, and then top that in with the fact that the Pistons only had 14 points in the fourth quarter, that should tell you what type of game this was. I'm generally the last person to get on officials. I myself have officiated a lot of basketball in my lifetime. It's a thankless job. It's very difficult to do. But tonight, I felt like the officials completely lost control of that game in all aspects. The Pistons finished with 27 fouls to the Hornets' 10. The Pistons shot 13 free throws, the majority of which came in the last 2 minutes of the game. The Hornets shot 30 free throws. And it's not even that big discrepancy that I felt like was the reason why the officials had lost the game. I mean, I think that there was a fair amount of fouls on the Hornets that did not get called. I think a lot of the fouls that the Pistons committed were fair fouls. I think that the one that got overturned from JB challenging might have been the only one that I really disagreed with. Where I was really struggling to kind of understand is why we were not getting the same type of officiating on our end. There was a layup where Cade got completely hacked on the body that went uncalled. Jalen Duren probably got pushed in the back on a dunk attempt towards the end of the game. There was a lot of stuff that could have got called within play, but then outside of that, it just seemed like they lost control of the game. I think that there was a total of 4 technical fouls in this game. It's a surprise there wasn't more. There was a lot of flopping going on. It was just a really ugly game as far as the officiating goes. And I want to make one thing clear, and that is something I almost never speak on this channel. I think that there's plenty, absolutely plenty of stuff the Pistons did wrong, and we're going to move into that. But I do have to point out the officiating was just not great at all. So outside of that, a win is a win. And the Pistons are in no position to be being upset with wins. I mean, we moved to 16-18 on the season, which is a better record than even I expected to have at this point in the year. So I couldn't be more happy about that. But this is the first time all year where I felt like we got a win and it was ugly. The Pistons had opportunities to close it out down the stretch, and they were missing free throws. Ausar got to the free throw line and missed 2 free throws that could have sealed the game. That was very unfortunate. Cade missed a free throw in clutch time. It was just an ugly game. But I guess maybe that's a blessing. Maybe it's actually a great thing that the Pistons were able to go out there and get a win when I felt like they played absolutely awful. I mean, Malik Beasley was 1 of 10 from 3. I mean, what more can you say? The Pistons played a bad game. The officials officiated a bad game, and the Pistons still found a way to win. So I guess I should stop complaining now and move on to the next one. We got the Timberwolves tomorrow, so we'll be back very, very soon. Talk about that in the morning. Catch up with y'all soon.